Sandy here, and I want to tell you a quick story today about my scarf. It's probably not the kind of story you're expecting to hear about a scarf, but I just felt the urge to share it today for some reason, so maybe you need to hear this, or someone out there does, and I hope that it's you in that case. So how did I get this scarf? I've actually had this scarf for nearly 10 years, and it was a gift, and I've come close quite a few times, to be honest, to putting it in storage or not keeping it with me, especially now that I'm traveling and I literally have trimmed my stuff so much. But something's always nagged at my heart and stopped me from leaving it behind or putting it in storage, and that is the story behind it. Because this scarf was given to me by a lady I met in the Canadian Arctic, in the north parts of Quebec. And what happened was that I lived in Canada for a year as a student, and became really interested in why people lived so far north, who lives in the north where it's ice and tundra, which is basically like rocks and very tough plants. And I became fascinated by that culture, and I was reading lots about it, and I decided I wanted to go and visit it, which is quite unusual really, because not many tourists go there. But luckily my parents worked for an airline at that time, so I was able to get cheap tickets, and I went up there by myself one day in May. And when I arrived, I was actually staying with a lady there, because the tourist board, which was basically two people, they said to me, well, if you're coming now, we don't have any hotels open because it's off season, but you can stay with my aunt. She sometimes has guests at her place. So that's what I did. And when I arrived at this aunt's house, she opened the door and looked at me like I was crazy. And what she said struck fear and horror into my heart, because she said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And it was so passionate. I thought, oh God, have I pissed her off? Have I arrived at the wrong time? Where else am I going to stay? And all these thoughts started flooding through my mind. But actually then she started to burst out laughing. And she was just laughing because she said nobody visits Kuujjuaq outside of hunting or ski, slow sledding season. So basically in the deep winter or in the deep summer. And I was there in between the two. So the snow hadn't melted yet enough to go ice fishing or sledding, but it hadn't melted enough to go hunting, but it wasn't strong enough to go and do the winter stuff. So she just couldn't understand what the hell I was doing there. This young girl on my own. So after that, she kind of put me more at ease, and I ended up spending a lot of time with her. She showed me around everywhere in Kuujjuaq. I even went hiking with her and one of her friends, and we went out for dinner. She made me amazing vegetarian food. We listened to music. She just made me listen to Inuit artists, and just shared so many interesting stories and tales about what was going on in that village, and who had divorced who, and who was dating who. Even though I didn't know who they were, it was just all very fascinating. And so I really enjoyed the time I spent there. And I stayed in touch with her niece, not so much with Louise, the lady I stayed with, because she wasn't really on the internet, and this was kind of before we had Facebook. So anyway, what happened next was that about 2 or 3 years later, I got a message from the niece telling me that unfortunately Louise had passed away, and she had died of breast cancer. And so I was really glad that she'd given me this scarf, because it was like a souvenir of her, and I wear it a lot in the winter time. It's extremely warm. She knitted it herself, and I just wanted to share that story, because sometimes when people we love move on, pass away, it can feel like that's the end. We're never going to see them again. But I just don't believe that. I don't believe we only live once. I really believe that we're souls that continue on, and that we're always around, especially if you've had a good connection with someone. I know every time I put this scarf on, I always think of her. I always think of Louise, and I always feel like she's never that far. So I love that idea that people aren't completely gone. And sometimes you can have physical things which remind you of that. And so I've never come truly close to actually putting this scarf away or not having it with me, even though, it's actually quite a big scarf when you're traveling. But I love it. So I'm really grateful she gave it to me, and I was grateful to have met her in the way that she showed me around Kuujjuaq. So I wanted to pass that story on to you today. Let me know if you've got anything similar with massive sentimental value. or any people you've met who've touched you, even though it was a very short time you actually physically met them. Because I think that's really a beautiful thing about life, is how people we meet can give us memories like that. So that's what I wanted to share. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you've had a similar experience. And Chico wants to just say his hello message. Hello? You there? Yeah. He's patiently waiting. There we go. Good boy. Good boy. Can you see the iPad? Bye.